About 40 minutes north of Christchurch Airport, you'll find this gorgeous place. Nestled in the Waipara Valley, Pegasus Bay is a beloved landmark for both food and wine aficionados.
Dad was in medical school and he started to get interested in wine. He was making a bit of fruit wine in the sort of under the bed at in his dormitory, and and then sort of went on to kind of the 70s. He started to kind of get a bit infatuated at that point and started planting some vines, and then about 10 years after that looked at finding something that was on a slightly bigger scale.
Like this,
yeah.
This is a bigger scale. I mean, how many hectares or how many grapes have you got here at the moment?
Individual berries or?
Individual berries, yeah.
No, the whole vineyard's we planted about 50 acres right at the start. That was in 1985, and then over the next 10 years we expanded the vineyard. So our whole vineyard's about 120 acres now. When we bought it, it was just a flat paddock, which was used for farming. So it was just a brown, waterless paddock with a few sheep on it. And the gully area down here was just brambles, and it was basically a swamp. Myself and my three brothers were at school. Dad became a little bit infatuated and it became a bit of an addiction, and he dragged Mum to Dad was still working full time to basically use all the boys as sort of slave labour and come out to the vineyard over the weekends. And we basically spent just about every weekend for a couple of years planting the vineyard. Over the last 20 years, Mum's just had a bit of a vision and been inspired by a lot of the gardens around the world, that they travel a lot through Europe, and they're quite inspired by a lot of the English and European gardens. So she's sort of come back and tried to put a bit of a New Zealand slant on the styles of garden that she's passionate about. My older brother Matt is the winemaker with his wife Lynette, and then I take care of the marketing side of things. My wife Belinda runs the restaurant. And then I've got our little brother sort of bossing us around. He's the big boss man. He's basically the business manager and general manager. And obviously Mum and Dad are still very much involved as well.
Now tell me about your wines. You've got your main divide.
Basically the main divide is grapes that we buy from growers, and then Matthew and Lynette make those wines. And then the Pegasus Bay range, which comes from our home vineyard. But then we have another range of wines which basically, they all have sort of operatic names, which is my mother's passion for opera. She's a bit of an opera fanatic, and thought we'd better keep Mum happy, and basically call our reserve wines after her passion. With Aria, which is a late harvest Riesling, have Maestro Bordeaux blend, Prima Donna, which is a Pinot Noir, Bel Canto, which is a dry Riesling, Encore, which is a noble Riesling, and Virtuoso, which is Chardonnay. So those wines we just make in years when the fruit's good enough, or it might be from a certain selection of barrels, it could be from a certain block of the vineyard, just kind of depending on the vintage. And we'll only make those wines if we feel we're not going to compromise the estate wines by taking out some of those better components.
And the restaurant was one of the winners in Cuisine's Best Winery Restaurant for 2009. So I guess things are going pretty well for you guys these days.
Yeah, hope so. We get so much great feedback from our customers now, compared to back in the early days when I was cooking, when it was pretty basic fare. And yeah, the wines themselves as well. It's pretty humbling and rewarding and great to when you get some nice accolades, and when you hear people just enjoying the wines and coming out here and enjoying the food and the wine together in this environment. So yeah, I think we're pretty happy with how things are going.
Pegasus Bay may have come from humble beginnings, but these days it's easy to see why it's one of New Zealand's premier wine and dining destinations. Not a bad way to spend an afternoon, really. Cheers.